Today I'm going to try to show you how you can diagnose the air conditioner on a Chrysler Pacifica from 2017 and newer. I recently had the AC compressor stop working on this car. I went to the forums and all I saw was a bunch of people talking about how there's a TSB on the compressor and how they took it to the dealership and they were told they needed a new compressor with bills anywhere from $1,000 up to almost $2,000. I just bought this car from the dealership not too long ago, and the first sunny day we had, of course, went to go turn on the AC and it didn't work. After they said they didn't want to help me, I figured I'm not going to let an HVAC technician go without AC or have to pay a big dollar from the dealership, so I decided I was going to fix it myself. Sadly, there's really not that much information online to try to help people with this problem. There's a couple videos going over where the fuse is at, which we'll cover here, and really nothing outside of that. No information on how to test the compressor, and really that's what I'm here to do today. I'm going to actually try to give you a comprehensive list of how you can diagnose your AC problem and how you can possibly prevent needing a $1,000 plus compressor replacement from the dealership. The first thing I want to show you is right here inside the fuse box. So if you look at this container, which I'm going to use the light to try to help us see it better, you'll see in the top here, let me get a better angle here, that it says right here for F20 AC clutch. If we look at the position of F20 on the lid, we can see this is the front of the box there. You can see that it's right, one of those three fuses right on the left side. Looking inside the engine bay, the camera is currently facing towards the car. It's going to be that fuse right here. Okay, so when the car is running and you have it calling for the AC to turn on, aka you've pushed the AC button, you should be able to put one of your probes over here in the corner on this ground probe, and then put your other lead on the fuse, just like that, and then go across from one to the other, and you should have 14.3 volts or so on both. I'm gonna go ahead and show you that right now. All right, I have the engine on now. So my meter is set to volts DC. I'm gonna put my black probe over here on the port, on the ground pin. And now I'm just gonna put my lead on one side of this fuse. And you can see I have 14.3 volts. I'm gonna move it to the other side of the fuse. And you can see we still have 14.3 volts. Now, if you have 14.3 volts on one side but not the other, go ahead and take one of your spare fuses right here. There's a bus bar of 5 fuses. You can just take the 10 out right there, and maybe you just have a bad fuse. Who knows? If your AC button is on and you don't get voltage across either of these points, you're gonna be dealing with a different type of sensor problem. Possibly you're low on refrigerant, or you're tripping out on low pressure or high pressure. There's really a bunch of different reasons why you wouldn't have voltage to the fuse, including computer problems. If that's your problem, this video sadly probably won't be able to help you all that much. If you're looking for an AC relay, the AC relay is actually integrated into the control module, so there is no relay for the AC clutch that you can test or try to replace to see if that'll get it working. So now that we're over here and done with this section, I'm gonna move on to the compressor itself to show you what was actually wrong and how you can replace it yourself. Before we get into diagnosing compressor stuff, I want to quickly show you where it is. So right now we're looking at the car. This is our passenger side over here. I'll stick this camera down here and get the best angle I can. But basically right underneath this radiator hose, first of all there's an alternator, and then underneath that, way down there, basically straight down from this point, is the AC compressor. So I'm going to show you with this compressor that I have here, just to try to make it easier so we're not crammed underneath the car. But then later I will try to just give you a glimpse of how you can access this on your Chrysler Pacifica. So this is actually a remanufactured compressor that I bought. I ended up only changing this top part, which is the pulley and clutch assembly. So I'm going to quickly take this apart and show you what we're talking about. This top part is the clutch plate itself. Then after that, you have the pulley and bearing assembly. And then lastly is the culprit of this video right here. This is the AC clutch coil. Now, when your air compressor turns on, it's magnetizing this coil, which causes this plate to press into the bearing assembly, and that's what allows the compressor to spin. This coil should read anywhere from 2.5 ohms to 4 ohms of resistance. So right now, I've got my meter right here set to resistance, and when I ohm out these leads, which they are very small and hard to see, I got 2.5 million ohms, which is essentially OL, or infinite resistance. I used these sharper rubber-coated tips on my meter just to make sure that they weren't touching each other. If they touch, you're going to read close to 0 ohms. If they're not touching but not making contact, you'll also read nothing. This was very hard to check underneath the car. I actually had to use an inspection camera just to ensure I had it right. One way that you can know for sure is you can take your leads and spread them out the width of the connector and then electrical tape them together. That way when you reach them into the car, you know that they're still sitting in the same position. But if you get underneath the car, which I'll show you in just a second, and you're able to ohm out this coil and it reads OL, that's why the compressor is not engaging. Everyone online is going to say, my AC compressor is not engaging anymore. It's not turning on. Something of that nature. Well, if this guy isn't working, it's not going to engage. Now, there is a series of issues with this compressor that you'll see from people saying that it's leaking or that it's making weird noises and it's intermittently working and then not working. If that's the case for you, there is a chance that the compressor is bad. But if you just one day the AC was working just fine and the next day it stopped working completely, you might have a bad coil problem. So I wanted to just make a video about that. I will quickly show you kind of how to access the AC compressor and get this clutch out. I will also do a mock removal of this assembly so you can see what I'm talking about. If you're going to attempt this repair, I just want to quickly show you the tools that you're going to need. You're really going to want some type of impact drill. You're going to need a 19mm socket to take the tire off. You also need a 10mm to take off a few of the cover bolts, and then also the screw on the AC clutch itself. The rest of the bolts are going to be a 5/16. You can use a 5/16 socket. This is just one that I have since I'm an HVAC technician. Then you'll also need some snap ring pliers, and you'll need a voltmeter that can read in volts DC and resistance/ohms. All right, now to show you how to access it on the side of the car. All right, we're on the passenger side front tire. If you were going to do this yourself, you would jack the car up, remove the 5 19mm lug nut bolts, and then back here there's a handful that's a 10mm, and then there used to be a plastic connector down there, but I broke it and I'm not going to replace it. And then there's a series of 5/16 screws right along here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, you remove all those. There's also a plastic clip here, and then up by the strut there's another plastic clip. You remove all that. This whole entire side of the wheel cowling can fold off to the side. You place it over here, and then right about there, the AC compressor is sitting right there with the clutch facing you. From this side, you can access the plug. The plug is sadly facing away from you, and you're probably going to need a pocket flathead screwdriver to pull a plastic pin up to unplug it. And that's where you'll check the resistance to the coil to see if it is bad or not. And then the removal process, once you get that old coil off, is extremely difficult, and I will try to show you on a bench what I'm talking about. I've set up the camera so it's facing how you would see it inside the car. When you're looking at it in the car, it's going to be facing forward like this, and that's where that coil plug is. Like I told you, the connector that you're going to have to pull up to then undo the plug is going to be facing away from you on this back side. So what I did is I used a pocket screwdriver. This is not and I had to reach my hand in from under there, and then I pulled the clip up and was able to unplug it. And that's where you would then have your taped together leads. You'd fish them in there and stick them down in there, and really you just want to be sure that you got a reading. You might want to even mess around with it for 10 minutes just to make sure, hey, is this thing a well or not? But when you're looking at it underneath the car, you would use your 10mm socket with hopefully an impact gun so you don't have to hold it with a screwdriver. Zip out the screw. And now honestly, if you do go and try to watch other videos of people replacing an AC clutch assembly on an AC compressor for a car, they're going to take out that screw and this thing's going to just fall right off. Sadly, you are not going to have that kind of luxury. In fact, I messed with it for so long. I even paid for a subscription to AllData to try to figure out how to get it off. They suggest you tap lightly along this rim with a rubber mallet to loosen it from the splines on the compressor. No, that did not work. The technique that I ended up having to do required using 3 flathead screwdrivers. And I actually had a helper with me, and I would position it like this in the car, and he actually had a long pry bar pushing right here on this tab while I was underneath the car prying from these 2 locations, trying my best to get this thing off. It took a lot of work, took a lot of grit, but once you eventually get that part off, you will, and I just have it loosely in there, you'll sing hoorah because you'll be happy that you don't have to deal with it anymore. And then this is where you're going to need the snap ring pliers. So there's a snap ring right here that I got a 6-piece set from Harbor Freight. This is just one of them, but this is kind of a bigger pair. I mean, you can see it in comparison to my hand. These were able to do the trick. You're going to really want a nice set once you're underneath the car and fiddling with it. But this one, stick it in, cover your eyes, wear eye protection, but that guy pops right out. And once you get that one off, that's when you'll pull the pulley assembly off, pulley and bearing. Then in here, there's a really big snap ring. It goes all the way around. So I'll reach in here. Get my snap rings on there, open, and then that ring comes off. I'm telling you, the hardest part's going to be that front plate. Those 2 snap rings come off really easy. And then once you get it out, there it is. If you want, once you have it out, you can use your resistance to actually check the coil again, just to make sure that that's what's wrong. And once you found out that, hey, it's just that, I mean, you can even spin these splines if you want, just to prove to yourself that the compressor is at least not seized up. But there's a company called R&Y Compressors. You can buy an assembly that comes with the coil, the front clutch, and the bearing and pulley for $110, brand new. So I ended up actually buying the whole compressor because at the time I didn't know for sure if the compressor was bad or not. Like I said, it never worked for me. I didn't know if maybe it had an intermittent problem and just the coil went out. But I was able to get this remanufactured unit, which comes with the whole compressor. It came with all these parts. Granted, some of them weren't new. And it also even has the pressure. This is a high pressure switch or high pressure sensor or something of that nature. I'm not actually entirely sure. But I was able to get the whole unit for $199. So just in case I did end up having to change the compressor. But, I mean, just to recap here. You have a compressor that's not turning on, it's not engaging, the coil, the clutch is not pulling in and spinning the compressor. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you have voltage to the fuse, which I showed you, which is F20. If you have voltage on both sides of the fuse, you know that in theory there should be voltage going down to the plug. You can then remove the right side tire, remove the cowl so you can access the compressor. You can actually pull the plug off and use these fine leads. You can put these leads directly into the connector when it's unplugged from the compressor to make sure that there's a voltage going to the compressor, actually at the connector, and then you can check the resistance of this coil. If you have voltage going to the coil but the coil has no resistance, then this is your problem. Get the whole assembly, change it all out, and save yourself over $1,000. I'm telling you guys, it's worth the headache. I hope this video helps. I'm sure that I've been all over the place. I'm sorry that this isn't concise. I'm just a HVAC guy slash car owner that was desperate for answers and didn't find anything online that helped me. So I hope that this did help you. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Hopefully I can help iron any details out that were not clear in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope that this helps you guys, and fix the AC inside your minivan before the summer comes and your kids are crying. Take care, y'all.